We ran out of planes and television sets. We ran out of food.
Christopher Nolan, it is a genuine pleasure to be sitting down with you today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yes, very good. So, I think it's fair to say, in terms of Interstellar, the less people know about this film before walking in, the better. So, I'm almost tempted to say, is there anything else you'd rather talk about right now?
You know, I'm a film fan. I'm a huge movie fan, and I always want to know what's going on with films. But it's like wanting to know, you know, what your Christmas present is before you open it under the tree. You want to know, but you shouldn't. You're disappointed whenever you find out too early.
It's a good analogy, the Christmas present one, because I'm guessing the watching of the trailer for Interstellar is tantamount to shaking the box. You're not quite sure.
Yeah, a little shake of the box, a little listen, you know.
As part of my job, I do have to sit down and watch the trailer, so I have seen the trailer, and
yeah.
It's a wonderful surprise in this day and age to watch a film and think from watching the trailer you kind of got a handle, and then sort of go, no, I didn't expect any of this, because there is so much in this film that people could not even guess at.
We try to put a lot in, and we're trying, as I say, to keep that experience fresh for the audience. But yeah, really, what we're trying to do now is get people to go and see the film. Hopefully, tell other people to go see the film.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
With cinemas currently packed to the rafters with comic book movies, it's perhaps difficult to remember a time just a decade ago when superheroes weren't all powerful. But hot off the indie success of both Memento and his first studio film, Insomnia, Gotham City came calling.
He's here.
Who? The Batman. A self-confessed Bats fan from an early age, Nolan was the perfect choice to bring the Caped Crusader back from cinematic oblivion. Batman Begins, and then later The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises reinvented and reinvigorated the entire genre, proving that these kinds of movies, made the right way, could still be a viable and popular prospect for mainstream audiences.
Master Wayne, you've been gone a long time.
Yes, I have.
When I was doing the press for The Prestige and we were travelling around, I got to talk with Chris a lot about it, and he said that he had an idea of what would become Batman early on in his career. So this must have been around the time of Memento or something like that, but obviously no one was giving him the keys to the castle at that point, so he could make it. And he said he walked into a cinema and saw X-Men 1. And his idea of a more dramatic and serious and genuine look at what life would be like as a superhero. And he was watching, he said, for the first 20 minutes I watched it going, damn, that's my idea. That's what I want to do. How are you? I'm Batman.
The thing that Chris did that was quite different for the time was that he took the character seriously, and he sort of decided, well, I'm not just going to make some throwaway comic book movie, because there had been some of those, but he decided, no, I want to make a real movie. I want to make the sort of big spectacle that, you know, I remember from when I was a kid.
I'll get my car. I pull up mine. Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
To take you back to Batman Begins, what was your motivation for getting involved in that film?
Well, the thing was that Christopher came to me with the script one Sunday morning out of the blue. He lived near me in the country, and there was this man standing there with the script. I didn't know, I didn't recognise him because I didn't know what he looked like, but once he said his name was Christopher Nolan, I knew him very well because I'd seen Memento. He said, I'd like you to be in a movie I'm making. So I said, come in, and we had a cup of tea, and I said, what is it? He said, it's Batman. So I thought, well, I'm a bit old for Batman. So I said, who am I playing? He said, the butler. So I said, the butler? Oh, I said, what do I say? Dinner is served? I've never said dinner is served, but one Christmas he sent me a gong on it, a butler's gong and thing, and on it said dinner is served.
What would you call that? Damn good television.
Before the release of Inception in 2010, critics had already anointed it as one of the best films of the year. But there was also a sense that it might be too much for audiences. On the surface, it's a star-driven heist movie with edge-of-the-seat thrills, breathtaking visuals, and kinetic action throughout. But the fact that it's wrapped around a mind-bending, multi-layered concept of dreams and the unconscious mind meant that it could have been a very tough sell for cinema-goers. And for many, this is the real power of Christopher Nolan as a filmmaker. His ability to challenge us with complex plots and dense characters while simultaneously delivering exactly what we want from a Hollywood blockbuster.
We're dreaming? I was so pleased to go to the movies and have a filmmaker assume that I was intelligent. You know, and there's kind of this, I don't know, standard line in Hollywood, oh, no, audiences aren't smart enough for that. I've never really been comfortable with that idea, because what I hear from my friends and when I go to the movies is people are so upset about how dumb movies are, you know, and how, so one of the things that I was just so happy was that he makes movies that are captivating, and somehow he doesn't sacrifice emotion for that.
Nobody gets more scope and scale on the screen than he does. His films wouldn't feel near as huge and enormous if he didn't have the intimacy that he comes from. And then all of a sudden you just break it wide open into a scope and a scale that we've never seen before on film.
I remember thinking to myself, watching the city folding in on itself in Inception, this is something that only Christopher Nolan would put on screen. Yeah.
I asked him, I said, where do you come up with this stuff? And I think I asked him this at the time. He was flying out to see me, I think, in New Orleans, and he was like an hour late because his plane was like, the layover in Dallas, Texas was late. And I was like, you flew commercial? I know the studio will fly you on their private jet. He's like, no, I like to fly commercial, and I like layovers like them. Like, you like them. He goes, yeah, because then I get bored. And when I get bored is when I start working out all these abstractions in my mind and come up with this stuff. I'm like, okay. So it's when you get bored that you come up with this stuff. And yeah, it's pretty interesting where he comes up with it.
Something, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Somehow the glitz and glamour of a star-studded premiere doesn't feel quite right for the release of the latest Christopher Nolan movie, and Nolan himself is as far removed from the Mr. Showbiz image you'd imagine for Hollywood's most consistently bankable director. Of course, his films are big and bold and definitely popular, but alongside that, they're also deeply personal stories with themes, structures and characters that are anything but what we've come to expect from audience-friendly blockbusters. But through his work, Christopher Nolan, the quiet, unassuming, thoughtful filmmaker, has become a star in his own right, as much a selling point for his movies as the special effects and the A-list cast he works with.
It was incredible working with Christopher Nolan. I've been such a fan of his. I think I've seen every single one of his films in the movie theater. And we all know that the visuals are always stunning, and you can really, get lost in the experience. I feel pretty lucky. You know, I had a great time the first time working on Dark Knight Rises, and I was so proud of what we did. And I wasn't expecting to get a call for a second one. I was honored and so very flattered to be invited back.
He's got this thing in his mind, but he still allowed me to get there and the other actors come and bring some ownership to our characters and create what we needed to create. I remember having a conversation with him early on when we were about the first week of shooting, and he wanted one thing and I wanted another, and so I was like, do you want to do one for you, one for me? He was like, absolutely not. We need to do this. And that's what we did the entire time.
You might have to decide between seeing your children again and the future of the human race.
We'll find a way. We always have.
What's it like sitting down to read a script like Interstellar? Because it's...
It took me 5.5 hours to read it. And because I kept going back, trying to make sure I understood the rules, and I had a lot of questions. The worlds and concepts that he puts, his imagination, what he puts on a page, and even more so what he ends up putting on screen, it's pretty awe-inspiring stuff. And then when he answered a lot of those questions, and I could more clearly see those worlds, I really started to get on the track of trying to understand then the science and the plausibility of these things, and then I was just excited about being the pilot that's going to take us on the ride. This world's a treasure. It's been telling us to leave for a while now.
Your daughter's generation will be the last to survive on Earth. You're the best pilot we ever had. Get out there and save the world.
Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? To our galaxy. Here we go.
What is the attraction for you of working with Christopher Nolan and being in a Christopher Nolan movie?
Well, this is the second time I've worked with him, so I was really looking forward to having another experience with him. I was really proud of what we did on The Dark Knight Rises. And I knew what I was getting into with him, so I was just excited to get more of what I'd already had.
Was there a moment on The Dark Knight Rises, or indeed on Interstellar, where you kind of sort of pinch yourself and go, I'm in a Christopher Nolan movie?
Every minute. There wasn't one. I mean, my biggest thing was like remembering to tamp down the enthusiasm so it didn't totally irritate everyone around me. But I was just like a little hummingbird, especially on the first one because, it's my first time doing it. I was playing Catwoman, which was so exciting. And on this one, I still had that same feeling, but I was playing a character very, very different. She was very kind of not trapped inside of herself, but she was a very interior person, so I couldn't be as gregarious on set. But because I'd had that first experience with Chris, I knew that we knew each other, and he would support my process, even if it meant sort of going off into a corner and sort of isolating myself and maybe even being a little sulky.
Couldn't you have told her you were going to save the world?
No. When you become a parent, one thing becomes really clear. And that's that you want to make sure your children feel safe.
It is one of those movies, so I'm going to limit what I say. It is one of those movies. Absolutely.
I mean, I think Chris is actually behind this board and is ready to come out, pounce at any spoilers.
Or perhaps a dime, just back of the neck. What is it about working with Christopher Nolan that makes the experience unique, perhaps, compared to working on other films?
I always try to work with filmmakers who have their own point of view. Christopher Nolan is a visionary, I believe. He has his own point of view. You watch his films and you know this is a Christopher Nolan film. In a way, like we're doing this ginormous film, but it feels like you're working with an independent filmmaker. He moves so quick, sometimes you do 3 or 4 takes, and if he has it, you move on. We actually finished shooting this 2 weeks early, which is never the case with big films. He also uses practical sets, no green screen in this movie.
Wow.
I mean, that's crazy.
Rolling, and action.
He doesn't like CGI. And people have got used to, in movies, where they go, oh, that was a great thing they did with CGI. In our movie, they go, oh my God, they did that for real. In the best sense of the word, he's a very old-fashioned director, in as much as it's got to be real.
The visual effects that we had to work with live, these were just amazing images of space projected outside of our little spaceship. We had 3 windows or whatever it was, but you could see. It wouldn't surprise me if he took some of the first takes, because we were literally just gasping at each other, and then it'd be like action, and then you go, wow, that's what we're looking at, bang, bang, bang. So that, I'd say that is quite unique.
When we're in the spaceship or we're seeing the event horizon rise in front of us, we're seeing what you, the viewer, see. When you're hiking a glacier, you're in Iceland, hiking the glacier. They're not putting the dust storm in CGI post, so you don't have to act like dust is in your eyes. Dust is in your eyes.
I was getting buckets of dust thrown in my face every day. And they created this material, it was biodegradable material out of cardboard. And anytime I was outside, the wind machines were going and the dust was throwing. And I prefer it. I know it sounds silly because months afterwards I'm still picking things out of my hair, but as an actor I want to be able to react to things. I love having practical sets. I loved driving through actual corn that they grew.